I looked this up, and I have a couple of references at the end if you want to look at it, where there are ordinances about this in other localities, that there are things that communities are doing that kind of come at this from a little different direction, because the law enforcement thing is after the fact. This is kind of I'm looking at what can we do to be proactive. I also think it's important to know that a lot of little neighborhoods of moderate priced homes properties are being bought up by people who have absolutely no interest in living there. And I believe the lady from High Point last time spoke about somebody buying up the properties, and they do not seem to have any interest on the effect on the neighborhood. They don't vote yes for improvements. They're allowing the properties to be rented to people who are not using them appropriately. So I feel like I would like for the township to look into protecting the moderate level community, and I live in one of those. And I have a person across the street who is periodically high on drugs. He's an adult that lives with his grandmother, and it is a rental. It's kept up very nicely. She's a nice lady. But I was afraid of him. He also had people visiting him that his grandmother took out, what do you call it? You can't come on my property. I don't know what the legal term for that is. He told me that some people were stealing from him. I immediately figured that out. I got a security system for my own home, but my little neighborhood is ripe for people buying up the properties, and maybe they will do the same thing. So I'm asking if we could form some sort of task force to look at this problem, not from just catching heroin dealers or people like that, but maintaining the neighborhood characteristic and not allowing absentee landlords to just take money from us and not have a civic commitment to the community. So, and I do have the references on the end, and maybe there are other things we could do, but I'd like for us to get on this, and I'm interested for myself as well. So what could we do?
First of all, there's no way for us to control who owns the property. I mean, there's no way.
I'm not asking that.
We have no means of doing that. If someone wants to buy a property, this is America, you can buy whatever you want or can't afford. As for maintaining or a task force to make sure that there's no nuisance there, we have one. He's sitting right there. Harry is on top of those things. If somebody lets him know there's a nuisance property, he is on it, or now we have a new zoning inspector. But they are on it immediately. I mean, at the next trustee's resolution, and typically we will see 4, 5, 6, or 8 of them at a time at the trustees meeting, particularly a workshop, passing resolutions for people to clean up their property. So it's already there. The drug activity, I will not comment on. That's for law enforcement to take care of. But I mean, if there's a nuisance property or a problem property, as far as the condition of the property, it's because somebody hasn't informed Harry or somebody that it's there.
I was also looking at the nuisance as activities going on at that house. Maybe they got their lawn mowed, but activities going on at that place that the police are called to. I saw this.
And that, I will not comment on. That's law enforcement.
But to have an ordinance that keeps track of that, and then the township would be billing and making the landlord responsible.
You can't send a bill for arresting someone.
For drug-related activities?
We generally speaking,
activities?
and I'll let Tori speak to it, you can't even arrest them. That's the problem, and he went into it at Tuesday's workshop. If someone ODs on heroin, he's not even allowed to arrest them.
Well, I think arresting is after the fact. I'm trying to look for proactive interventions, and maybe I haven't brought up the right ones.
As far as the condition of the property, there is proactive intervention. All you have to do
that is only if
let the
someone
township
reports
know.
them. That's only as I understand it.
If you think you have a drug problem, then you need to contact the sheriff's office.
So you don't want to do anything to try and figure out how to get ahead of this as energized by the township itself. We're just gonna have you be the task force then?
I've got a number of things, talking points to review, so, to go over with you tonight, so.
Do you understand what I'm talking
Certainly,
about here, though?
absolutely.
And there are ordinances about that, and maybe they're not legal, is that what you're telling me?
No, there might be ordinances in cities or villages because they're allowed to do it. We're
Okay,
not.
okay,
We are not allowed to create a criminal offense
so it would be,
by law.
it would be going to Hamilton County
It
to
would-
ask
yes,
for this
it
for
would be the
everybody,
sheriff's
and then we
department.
would follow Hamilton County on that? Okay.
Yes.
What about property registration, to know where are the rentals, where are the vacant properties, and who is the person that owns that?
Well, you can find that out on the auditor's website.
I know, but what about if we kept a record of it?
Why would we spend the money to do that? It's on the auditor's website.
So that we could easily track down, because the last thing I heard at the last meeting was they're absentee landlords, we can't find them, they refuse the letters, I mean, they're doing a dodge. How do we keep them from doing a dodge?
Well-
That's an easy dance for them, and it's hard for us.
If the auditor doesn't have the information, how would we be able to find it?
I'm saying that we require that rentals in Sycamore Township register as a rental.
But the auditor requires that already.
So you're saying that, so we could just say, where are all the rentals in Sycamore
I mean, you
Township, and
could-
we could get a list of that?
You could probably go to the county auditor. I mean, you're required to fill a form out. I don't know that everybody does, but
And they would filter it, we would know,
Pretty
and so
sure.
every,
doesn't it, Rob?
so
Isn't there
Yes.
something?
Yes.
the auditor knows if a property's being rented.
Yes.
I can address that too,
Okay.
because we do that. So when we go and we look at a property, for property maintenance, we actually extract the information from the auditor's website. Now, if Mr. Smith owns that property and Mrs. Jones lives there and there's no relation, if Mr. Smith doesn't register that as a rental property, neither the auditor or the township is going to know because they didn't register the property. Now, if you
Is
ask,
there any penalty for that?
that would be something you'd have to check with the auditor's office, because what we do.
You don't know? You
I
don't
do not
know.
know because it's an auditor item. So here's what I do know though. When we find out about a property owner that has a rental property, if it's not registered with the auditor's department, again, we extract that information, we start our complaint, we then notify the county auditor's department. We'll actually send an email to whomever it is, blah, 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 this property are they registered as a rental property? We don't see it on the auditor website, they'll say no, and then there's actually a different tax rating that goes along with rental property versus, a person occupying their own property. So I would refer you to the auditor, but we do everything that we can to work with the auditor's department. When we find out there's a property that's rental, we notify the auditor. But
That seems like a very slow process, and apparently not working if we're trying to, in this drug investigation, find out who the absentee landlords are and call them to task. Because that's what was being said at the last trustees meeting, that we couldn't find these people. They were refusing the mail, and they were known to be dealing drugs out of there. That's what I heard. I'm concerned about it. I live near it. I live in a neighborhood that could easily start going that direction, so I'm personally interested. And I think that if we aren't registering who's renting out properties, we need to consider start doing it, and not by the backwards way that you're talking about, and that there be a penalty for not registering that you're renting that property. That's my opinion, and maybe it's not legal, but I saw that there are other communities that are doing this. I don't know why the township can't do it. Maybe that's something I have to take up with Hamilton County as well.
Again, the township is not allowed to create a criminal penalty.
A fine is a criminal penalty?
Well, you have civil fines.
Because we fine in zoning, don't we? Or
Yeah,
we
you
don't?
have civil fines, but
Okay, let's
as
go
far
civil
as
then.
what you're talking about with those communities and that sort of thing, those are typically criminal penalties that they're enforcing.
I don't think it said anybody's being arrested. Maybe I don't understand the language, but it was you had to pay a fee to register your rental property, and if you didn't do it, it wasn't a very expensive an example, I saw $75. you were fined then $1,000 for not registering. And I didn't say anything
I
in there
think the
about going
auditor
to
has a
jail.
fine also, but I don't know, I can't say that for certain, but I think they do.
Well, I think we could do more to protect our neighborhoods. And I'd love to see us put our heads together, a lot of smart people here. These were just things I thought of, but there's surely more proactive approaches to nuisance properties, and I don't just mean high weeds, in small neighborhoods that are vulnerable. So I'd like for you to think about that.
Mr. Connors, Larry has a question, I think that's on this topic. I
Okay.
don't wanna jump topic, so.
That's fine.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
So I have some questions.
Since this is the comment section, would you identify yourself?
Yes,
name
I'm
and address
Janet
for the record?
Ferris, and I live at 4651 Lago Drive.
Okay.
So I was here a couple of the last trustee meeting, which is why I'm back here again. I really don't want to be, but if there is a subject that will have every mother, every wife, every female on the hot button, and that is the drugs. And what I heard just in your comment just now was, we don't wanna do anything. We have
No,
a,
that's not what I said. I said the sheriff's department handles the drug aspect of it. The township does not have a police department. If you suspect drug activity, you should let the sheriff's department know. Certainly I care about it.
well, how did High Point get to the point it is?
High Point is not unique.
And how did some of the other areas?
I-
I'm
no
telling you,
offense, I don't
I have
mean to flip.
zigzagged the country, living in every community. There are counties and towns that are on top of this. When I was here on the last meeting, the 4 grandmothers that sat over there, the grandmothers 4 or whatever, they said several things, one of which was zoning violations. That is absolutely in your scope.
Was what?
Zoning violations. I believe there's a business that they are concerned that's being run out of one of the houses.
If we're aware of a zoning violation, they're notified.
You know,
The
I'm not
nuisance
buying
property.
this
Well,
because
then-
I'm just not. The township is going to have to come into 2018 and decide where you are in the fight against drugs.
Harry, how many nuisance property resolutions do you think we've done this year? You keep bringing it back to drugs, and I keep telling you, yes, we care about drugs, we don't enforce that, the sheriff's department does, you need to talk to the sheriff's department. We handle zoning, we handle nuisance properties, and we handle them every meeting. You come to a workshop, how many do we have Tuesday? 3, 4, 5?
And
But
there's
I
a
think-
difference, Wade, there's certain things that we, just so you know too. So there's property maintenance issues that we can go in, declare a property, the trustees will declare a property, they sign a resolution, we post it. That way we're giving them notification, we then do a lien holder information, we notify all the lien holders, 7 days later, we hire a contractor, they clean the property, and then there's a different process after that. So that's one. The second part of that though is, let's say the siding's falling off and the gutters are falling down and there's rotted siding. We're not gonna go and repair that, so then that's a whole other process. That's a civil method where now we're gonna summons them to court, and then we go to court, and then we go in front of a judge, and they usually don't show up, and then the judge has a subpoena. I mean, it's this constant battle of, what do we do?
Well,
And we're doing everything that we
And
can
I-
by law, and everything that the property maintenance department does is directed by board of trustees and our legal counsel to make sure what we do, there's no violations of law. We're doing everything that we possibly can. When you look at other townships, they call me to find out what we're doing. And they've been doing that for years, because we're one of the few townships that actually summons people to court and take them to task. And I can tell you, right now, I have 100% record of abatement at court. I've never lost. That's not a conceded, that's fact. When I go down there, we resolve it.
so if that's the case,
It is the case.
then, why there was a nuisance property on Kugler Mill that took, what was it, 3 or 4 years, 5 years for
Oh.
the township to correct?
I can tell you the why. Because one, we go through you gotta let me finish. I know you're anxious, but so am I. So, it's one of those properties that's been a nuisance since I've been here, which has been 10 years. We've raised a garage on it, but there's a process. If somebody comes to me and says, Harry, that property at Largo is a mess, and I go and look at it and it's not, well, guess what? I close out the case. But if I go there and the grass is tall, I'm gonna send you a notification. Well, now, my inspectors have been told we need to be kinder to the residents. We need to give them more time to abate these things. We can't be picking on people. I tell you what, we don't pick on people. It's notification. We have our website, we have phone, we have all these methods for people to notify us. I can show you a record this thick of all the outstanding violations we have right now. They deal with abandoned vehicles, they deal with tall grass and weeds, they deal with buildings getting ready to fall down. We just can't go and tear down a building. It's an extensive process. Think about it. If somebody complained about your house and I gave you one notice and said, I'm gonna tear it down tomorrow, wouldn't you wanna object? Wouldn't you wanna voice your opinion on why the township should not tear down your property, the building?
4 years though, that was a long time.
It is a long
of
time.
going through.
And do you know
And-
what happens? We go in, we abate the condition, we cut the grass, we put a lien, actually, we send them the bill first. They don't pay it, then we send it to the recorder's office, they record it as a tax lien, and guess what? They pay the lien at the end of the year because it's a tax bill. So each time we're starting over and over again. The one property on Kugler Mill right now, 6330, we're finally at that point where I'm pretty confident that we've exhausted every avenue of proper notification. So you know what's gonna happen? We're gonna tear down somebody's house. We are gonna go in with a piece of equipment, hire a contractor, we're gonna tear down somebody's house.
Is
Now,
this
they
the
don't-
house that we're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
There's
They-
no one living there.
That's right, but
And
it's still
there
their
was all kinds
home.
of vagrancy activity going in, and there's
There's
a
nobody
fire
living
hazard, I mean, you know, there were all kinds of issues. I mean, you and I could go back and forth and
That's
and really debate, because on Largo, I can assure you that you've been there right on the money within 30 days, of whatever has been non-compliant on Largo, and I appreciate that.
Oh,
But I
good.
just think that the drugs in the top part of this township have got to be dealt with.
I
And
went
we
through
are
a
gonna
similar-
have to
Address your
put
comments in a moment.
a commission together to decide that we're gonna deal with this. Because law enforcement cannot do it by themselves.
Thank you. We can.
We can't. We cannot keep putting our young men in harm's way. In Florence, South Carolina last night, that was unacceptable. We cannot keep traumatizing the EMS men when they have to go and, you know, help one of these people that has had an opioid, okay? I mean, there are things going on, and this is not new. It's been going on. So where have we been?
It's a topic
We've been at the
nationally.
party, losing $100,000. And with beer too. I mean, I don't know, this makes no sense. And, you know, I will just yield to the floor, but, I just had to tell you that Ms. Kugler did a fabulous job. I didn't know what she was gonna speak about, and if I could have just put myself in her position, I would have spoke the same words. There's a choice here. We are either going to address the opioid and the drug and the crime problem at the top part of this township, or we're not. And if we don't, woe be it to the legacy of everybody in here.
Mr. Sheldon. Certainly, I can wait my turn.
Trying to get through public comments.
I know.
I can do that, or I can just.
Okay,
Because I don't have a lot to,
Okay.
in fact, I don't have anything on my monthly report. I can go ahead and address these comments now.
Mr. Shelton,
I have a,
Would you mind if Lieutenant Smith, so that we keep the topics related, he would like to
Sorry about
respond
that.
to the
Oh,
previous.
I think his comments.
It's
are-
related.
sit down a minute then.
Yeah, just take-
That's what it takes.
Rest yourself,
I
yeah,
have
and
no
we'll,
problem.
and we'll get
Thank
to you.
How much time do I have? We started talking about this at the workshop meeting on Tuesday. And one of the problems from the law enforcement side of the house is we can have discussions about heroin, but they're hard and they're cold, and a lot of people just don't want to talk about it. So I'll talk all night long if you want me to, but I guarantee you I will say something that will shock you, that will offend you. I will say things that you won't understand, and I will say things that you don't want to hear. So we can talk about it. Heroin is unlike anything we've ever seen. It's completely unprecedented, and it's multifaceted. It's a huge problem with all these different moving parts. So realistically, law enforcement is already behind. I don't care if you're, if you're in Chicago or West Virginia or Cincinnati, Ohio, or wherever you are. We are already behind. Heroin, for the men and women that patrol your streets in Sycamore Township, heroin has been virtually decriminalized. So if I could give you a scenario, we've got a man and woman on the side of the room here. Let's say they're in a residence, and High Point is not unique. I want to make that very clear. We are having overdose deaths in $600,000 and $700,000 homes. This isn't a low-income
Not
thing.
at the rate though. I mean, if you took the rate.
I don't have the hard data in front of me, but I would say absolutely. Last summer, I was on my way to a meeting in the evening. Paul Meadows, which 25 years ago I think was Homer Rama in Sims Township, we had an overdose death. So I'm not going to debate rate. The point I was going to make was, for the men and women responding, the first responders from the law enforcement side of the house, heroin has been virtually decriminalized. So if these two folks are using or abusing heroin, in whatever scenario you can imagine, and let's say it's Mrs. Hughes, right? Let's say Mrs. Hughes overdoses. I can't arrest her. And if the squad shows up or the deputy shows up and they administer Narcan and they revive her and she comes back, I can't arrest her. She would have to be in possession of a rather large quantity for me to even hit her with a drug possession charge. Now let's say he's a part